Hello, 'tis me, Monkey Guy, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make an auto-loading railgun and also just general things about automatically generating contraptions, right? Which I think is a pretty important thing. How do you make bombs? How do you make missiles, projectiles for cannons? We're gonna talk about it. So 100% you've already seen this basic railgun design, right? And kind of the default railgun projectile that comes with it. But the issue is, when you have to load something, it takes a while, right? You gotta place this, boom, 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 lever, right? Like, it's too much work. It's too much work. Nobody wants to do all that, especially if you want to fire fast. How do you fire quickly? Well, that's the thing. So, obviously, and if you haven't messed around, I watched some videos by Carson, the tank guy, and this kind of gave me the idea for this, right? All this does, this just prints our bomb, okay? So we have our bomb here, but it's not a separate physics object. It is just part of our contraption right here. Well, how do we get it to launch on its own? And actually, I will go into a little more depth on this. So this is just a mechanical bearing with deployers on it, and then these deployers are set to a schematic. Alright, so if you don't know, if you place a schematic, actually I'll disable it for a second, and okay, it's not going to give me the schematic, whatever. If you place the schematic, so there's actually this schematic of that placed right here, right? And I give that schematic to the deployers, and while they're assembled, they're able to read the schematic. So this guy sees, okay, TNT wants to be here, place TNT, right? This guy, boom, 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 and then this guy for the lever on top, and then they just pull their items out of a creative crate or whatever chest, barrel you may use to store your payload, and then that just swings around really fast using a sequence gear shift, okay? At just max speed, it doesn't really matter, right? Well, how do we get it to detach? Because issue is, even if you just push something on its own, it's not going to detach. Well, if I show you, and boop, it's gone, right? How does that happen? How does that work? Well, you might have noticed already this tiny little light spot here. Well, what could this mean? What could this light spot mean? Well, what's actually going on is there is a swivel bearing right here in the side of the railgun. Well, why would that be? Well, let's say I break the swivel bearing. What do you think is going to happen? Take a wild guess. What happens is this entire segment of the mechanism drops off. They're entirely separate mechanisms, right? Entirely separate contraptions. And so, obviously, we already know that, if a block is updated and it's not on a contraption anymore, it turns into its own contraption or whatever, right? Just do that. Separate it into two contraptions. And I can stick these back together, and they're perfectly flush, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that they're separate mechanisms. What the hell is that? Fucking... Okay. You wouldn't even be able to tell that they're separate mechanisms, and yet, as we see, this pushes the piston up, right? It is now no longer attached to this mechanism, so it's on this mechanism, right? But the piston actually placing and then removing itself updates the projectile, and it checks its surrounding, and it says, wait, I'm no longer attached to this contraption. I have to go somewhere else. So it does. I've tested this. Actually, I'm not going to say anything else. Go do your own testing. Yeah, I don't really know if, how do I put this? I don't know if you can just push stuff off. I think you technically can. It's just in this case where we have, like, two parts of the mechanism, right? We obviously need the rest of the rail. How do we do that? Just split it into two. But in general, you can just push stuff off, I think. But the important part is you need the piston or whatever you're using, rope pulley, whatever, to be on always place, right? Because if it's not on always place, then it's not going to update stuff. It's not going to push block updates. But overall, this makes it simple. Oh, also, in your schematic, make sure you save your lever to be in the on position. I just wanted to point that out. Well, now on to the railgun part, okay? So we're going to ride this. What happens? So typically, if you've tested your railguns and you just kind of stand there and watch, you probably noticed they don't go that far, right? I mean, you can kind of see... Oh, pff, I'm an idiot. You can kind of see... that the bullet holes, the crater holes in the ground from some of my previous tests. Oops. You can kind of see the crater holes in the ground from some of my previous tests, right? And then most of them don't go that far. The issue actually is, and I assume most people have figured this out to an extent, when contraptions get out of render distance, not only do they deload, but they also lose all of their momentum, right? So, I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So we just do boom, 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 okay? So it looks like it's gone, right? It looks like it's off. Well, let's ride another projectile over there. See what it looks like from up in the clouds. So as we can see, this guy's just falling straight down now. He's not going in a line. He doesn't have his velocity, and I'm over here soaring. How is that possible? Again, when things are out of render distance, they lose a lot of their velocity. This is bad. I didn't want to bother downloading additional mods, but there are chunk loading mods for Create Mod, and I mean, I bet there's some like weird stuff you could pull. And you lose about half of your range if you're not using this. I mean, and even with that said, my render distance, my simulation distance is on 12 chunks. Most servers will not run 12 chunks. That's just not happening. Especially if you're running like typical Create automation. 12 chunk simulation is completely ridiculous and absolutely absurd. This is a lot of fun though, I will admit. Nobody's going to run that, and so your railguns will have an even shorter range. And so you might have to barter with whoever runs your server into adding a chunk loading mod. Just a regular Create chunk loading mod, doesn't need to be anything too crazy. Other questions maybe are how do you get your railgun to fire farther? Well, sadly, everything you can do to make it travel farther is logarithmic. So you can see I've made this thing very long, but I don't really think it makes that big of a difference. I mean, it's definitely significant, right? But 1,000 blocks away, if you mount this thing, I've been thinking about it for a while. If you mount this thing on like an orbital levitite ship that's just hovering in the sky, 500 blocks up, 1,000 blocks away, nobody's getting you. You're not getting got anytime soon. Most planes can't even hit 300 blocks. Levitite is completely broken and it infuriates me. But that's whatever. You can... So yeah, so longer is fine, but as it accelerates, you know, it accelerates less. You can make it wider, taller, shorter. I wouldn't make it too far taller because then you're kind of picking up the payload off the actual blue ice, which is a maybe bad idea, but I'm not sure. And then simultaneously that kind of has the same issue of the more you do it, the less effective it is, because obviously in this position the magnets that are directly adjacent to the payload are going to do more, right? Magnets a block away are going to do less, magnets 2 blocks away are going to do much less, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think that's it. Bye.